Hello, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Fowler again. Welcome back to another Reader's Workshop lesson. This is focusing on session 6. Like I said, we're going to backtrack a little bit and kind of review what we have been doing now that we're doing this virtual online learning. And today is all about seeing big ideas in small details. It certainly piggybacks with a lot of what we've been talking about over the last several days. The last couple lessons asked you to really look and focus on passages, the sections that you're reading, and making you really stop and pause when there's a part that's really speaking to you. Maybe it just seems odd to you, or maybe it's a repeated symbol or object. Maybe, like yesterday, we were talking about, it's because a character came up with an idea that possibly might lead to greater thinking for later in the stories. We practiced even doing that. So I want to show you what I mean as we are trying to fit our pieces together and determine how that might lead to possible themes, which actually we did in school and you did a great job too. I want to show you what I mean. We can determine big ideas um, by focusing on these small moments or even little details that seem to scream out at us or repeated objects. So as you can see, I put a little icon of the tiger rising up here. And in Tiger Rising, we did a lot of this work. I'm going to switch to the next slide. Some of the symbols, so I consider that it is a small detail. It's a small object. That some of these got repeated often. For example, the suitcase of not thoughts. Does it represent the bigger idea of sad memories and sad thoughts? That kind of led us to some possible themes when we were discussing that story. Also, how about the tiger? The tiger certainly spoke about often in that story. Was it an idea of courage? Maybe something else. And also, how about his poor leg rash? His leg rash was really what we considered a lot of part of his sadness and pain that he was living with. Kind of links to the suitcase of not thoughts. We did a lot of reflection on these during Tiger Rising, and we're starting to do a lot of that reflection in Number the Stars as well. We've actually seen, and I'm going to in a minute reread a part where the necklace that was on Ellen's neck is probably a type of object or symbol or small detail we should pay attention to. But there were other details we've been paying attention to as well. For example, we were talking about how, and if you remember, one of the first few chapters, Anne Marie's mother discussed how friends help each other out. And then later, unfortunately, we see in chapter 5 that they did end up, Anne Marie's whole family ended up having to help Rosen's family because they are Jewish during this really tough time of war when Jewish people were being severely mistreated. So I'm going to reread a part to you in chapter 5. I think you're all going to remember it, where Ellen was sleeping over with Anne Marie and her family because it wasn't safe any longer. Her parents were away somewhere safe as well, but they couldn't have them all there in case they found them. They were worried about soldiers coming in even at night. And so they talked about how they were going to have to pretend to be a family. And unfortunately, during this part that I'm about to reread to you, soldiers knocked on their door. And it was actually an intense moment. It was actually one of those parts of the story where I kind of kept reading and I didn't stop like I typically do in my read aloud because it was an intense section. We wanted to read it and find out what was going on. We were worried for them. I remember stopping and thinking that, and we were all like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So I want you to listen to this part. It is when the soldiers were just knocking on the door, and I think you're going to remember this part. But I'll replay it because I want to talk about what we think is symbolic here. Small detail, these small parts. It was when the soldiers were about to enter Anne Marie's room and she was trying to get Ellen's necklace off of her neck. So I actually have it as somebody right at the part I want you to listen into. So hopefully you can hear this. Ready?
Ellen, she whispered urgently, take your necklace off. Ellen's hands flew to her neck. Desperately, she began trying to unhook the tiny clasp. Outside the bedroom door, the harsh voices and heavy footsteps continued. I can't get it open, Ellen said frantically. I never take it off. I can't even remember how to open it. Anne Marie heard a voice just outside the door. What is here? Shh, her mother replied. My daughter's bedroom. They are sound asleep. Hold still, Anne Marie commanded. This will hurt. She grabbed the little gold chain, yanked with all her strength, and broke it. As the door opened and light flooded into the bedroom, she crumpled it into her hand and closed her fingers tightly. Terrified, both girls looked up at the 3 Nazi officers who entered the room.
I'm going to stop there for a minute and kind of go back to my slide because that was a key moment. It was actually the moment, and I'm going to click to my next slide, that I think we were actually discussing together how it reminded us in chapter 3 how friends will take care of them, Mama said gently. That's what friends do. That quote we had already written down and discussed that perhaps a possible theme was that friends help out friends when they need it. Now we know on the front cover there was that necklace, the picture of the necklace as probably a possible symbol. And we even stopped to ask ourselves how this part might be significant. And it reminded me of another part. That's what I want you to think to do. Think about how this connects to other parts. This part reminded me of the part when Mama said friends take care of them because Anne Marie was showing a lot of courage there by tearing off this necklace in the last minute to take care of her friend. This symbolic necklace that represents, in my opinion, her Jewish strength. However, at the moment, it is actually needing to be hidden. It's not so much of a strength. So I want to keep reading into a different part. And I'm going to just kind of fast forward through this to a part at the very end of this chapter. And I want you to listen in to how this small part in this moment, I want you to ask yourself, it's your turn right now, before I have you go practice this on your own, to think to yourself how the ending of this chapter still might be significant and fit in with the rest to an overall idea we're thinking of. It's right at the end here.
Behind him. Anne Marie relaxed the clenched fingers of her right hand, which still clutched Ellen's necklace. She looked down and saw that she had imprinted the Star of David into her palm.
So that's how they ended up ending, if you remember that chapter. And this was actually a kid, I would say it's a drawing, but this person, this student, wanted to really recognize through the use of a jot, that was a picture of what her hand could have looked like with the necklace in it and how the imprint was in there. And to me, it was really, and I'm going to click to the next slide, the second also part that connected to, yet again, our overall idea, the friends help friends when they need it. Those were 2 key facts that we came up with, or 2 key pieces of evidence and small details within this large chapter book that is possibly helping us support an overall idea. And it doesn't always have to just be an idea of theme, but certainly that is something that we all should be doing in our stories, thinking about the message or the theme of the stories. So today, I want you to really think about, when you are reading, that big ideas come from these small moments, these small details, these small objects. I want you to think about today as you are reading your own fiction stories. If there's any small details, if there's any objects that are repeated, maybe even phrases that are repeated. I also want you, for writing time today, to answer this. The word friend keeps coming up in Number of the Stars. It seems like it is a detail the author wants us to focus on. What do you think this symbolizes in the story? What is the big idea the author wants us to learn? Please write about it using strong examples. Now, in the writing link today, I have a YouTube link that will reread chapter 6. We read most of it together in case you were absent or you need to catch up. You can rewatch it, and you're going to notice that even the word friend came up again at the end of that chapter. To me, it supports what we've already just been talking about. So I do want you, for reading today, to think about small details, small moments like you've been doing in your own stories. Maybe perhaps there's even a symbol that keeps getting repeated that you think means something bigger. Please definitely note that because later for writing in a few days, I might have you write that as well about your own book club book. Today's writing will be an extension of Numbers of Stars. So happy reading, happy writing, and I hope all of you have a great rest of the day.